And without further ado, we would like to talk to and welcome Joe Solecki to the show today, who scored a first-round submission win over Austin Hubbard this past Saturday night. Joe, how are you doing, brother?
Man, I'm fantastic. How are you guys? Thanks for having me on.
I'm doing great, man. So just we'll hop right into the fight if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So you had an incredibly impressive performance the other night. Very quickly, you disposed of Mr. Hubbard. You wore him out on the back against the cage until you got a choke. I believe there was about around 2 minutes or more of total back time until the very end there. So how were you able to stay so composed in such a high pressure situation and for so long on his back?
I think definitely no crowd probably helped a little bit because no one was going nuts when I got on his back. My coaches did a great job keeping me calm. Specifically, Jeff Jimmo was the one that was kind of my chief corner. He was doing all the talking, and I could hear him clear as day. And I knew there was no urgency from there because I felt really comfortable with the fact that I had the speed advantage on the feet and the power advantage. I had gotten hit by him just once and didn't feel anything out of the ordinary. So typically, I'd be a little cautious hanging on the back like that, just because when you get off, yeah, he had to carry my weight, but also my legs might be a little rubbery. But I felt comfortable, especially thanks to my boxing coach, Chris Galb. We spent a lot of time on, working less moving around and more staying in the pocket for when we need it. Obviously, MMA, we want to move our feet, move our head every chance we get. But if I do need to stay in the pocket, I felt very comfortable coming out in the second round, not the freshest of legs, and still being able to do what I needed to do. So it allowed me to have the confidence to just go for the choke from there and ride out the back.
And in addition to that, one of my follow-up questions about that is, how were your legs feeling after that 2 minute period? Were they burnt out at all?
No, surprisingly, no. We have a fantastic strength and conditioning coach, Hudson Rose at Hudson Rose Athletics here in Wilmington, North Carolina. And he's a true genius. He's absolutely a mastermind when it comes to strength and conditioning. He's already watched the fight probably about 15 times. He's watched John Salter's fight about 15 times as well since Saturday. Just analyzing mechanics and where we can get better. And he's already been like, oh, man, I should have had you doing more isometric stuff with your legs. Like, wait till we get back. I got more stuff. So he's kind of from the same school of thought of always trying to improve and always trying to push it to the next level, never being content. So we fit in really well with each other. But I think that was the big difference maker. So, like I said, and the big word that everybody's tossed around, which I really actually appreciate, is a big compliment, is composure. Because I was saying that going into the June fight, how are you going to beat Austin Hubbard? I was like, I think if I stay composed, I beat him everywhere. And people were like, oh, well, do you think you're going to be uncomposed? I was like, no, I just think I need to stay calm. And I think with the conditioning he's put us through and the amount of sparring that we do, there's no excuse to get tired other than getting stressed out from being in a bad position or getting clipped and getting rocked or something like that. That's out of my control. But outside of that, staying calm, I think, is going to be the only reason, if I don't stay calm, why I would get tired. So I felt fantastic getting off the back. I felt like as soon as he tapped and let go, usually you got to take a breather, hang on the cage or something. But I felt great. So very pleasantly surprised.
Beautiful. So we know you fought late last year in December at the Capital One Center, I believe it was. And
Yep.
in addition to that, before that, you fought at the Apex as well on the Contender Series in 2019. And obviously, you were there again last Saturday. So, how do you like fighting at the Apex compared to a bigger venue?
Oh, man, I felt fantastic Saturday night. I kind of hope if the pandemic could last forever, that'd be awesome. I'm just kidding. But the no crowd was fantastic. I love being in front of a crowd. There's no feeling like it is. It's amazing when you get your hand raised and there's 10,000 people, 20,000 people, whatever it was at Capital One Arena. But that being said, that's not why I love, again, messages from fans. It's amazing. Not why I do this. I spent a lot of time competing in jiu-jitsu where it's you and your coach and him and his coach and maybe like 5 people watching. And that's like at the highest levels. So I don't do it for that. I just love competition. So being there, it was almost very intimate. It was like the true form of competition. It's you in your corner, him in his corner, an announcer, a couple camera guys, and the president of the UFC. It was pretty darn cool. I enjoy that. I think that's the pure essence of combat sports. But it'll be good to get back in front of a crowd as well, because how often in your life do you get to step out in front of a crowd that size, especially in fighting? It's not like the other sports where you play 70 games a year, 80 games a year. We get 2-3 fights a year. So it is great to do them in front of crowds. But I truly enjoy the Apex. I like the small cage. I like the small shows. And I really don't think it matters. There's always that pressure of people watching because, even though it's empty arena, we knew there's, however many people are watching on big ESPN since we were main card. So still pressure. So I like it all just the same.
Yeah, and I was also thinking about asking you this as well. What's your thought about the big cage versus the small cage? Do you really have, a preference at all?
Not particularly, I think it just depends on the opponent, really, because when I fought Matt Wyman, we were in the bigger cage, but also he kind of circled the perimeter and stayed on the outside and kind of stayed on the logos, trying to stay away. Whereas both my opponents in the contender series, and I don't know if this is the small cage or just their style of fighting, met me in the middle and we started out pretty fast. So I don't know if it was the big cage why Wyman stayed away or if he was just trying to be a little more tactical and defensive. So I like a small cage. I'm a grappler. I like to box. So that 25 foot's perfect. That's kind of the area in our gym that we mark off to train at anyway. So, big cage isn't bad either. If I'm stuck in there with a big monster, I wouldn't mind being able to dance around and stay away from his power shots. So I think either or, it doesn't really matter. Both have their advantages.
Awesome. So this fight was originally slated to be back on June 20th, but it got pushed back. So just talk about a little bit about your preparation for the fight and if distractions like postponement and coronavirus have affected your ability to train and prepare.
Yeah. So I had to pull out the fight because of coronavirus. I actually got COVID-19. I was fine, so it wasn't really a big issue for me. I had some back pain and some like gastrointestinal stuff where probably weight cutting wouldn't have been very fun. I probably couldn't have rehydrated properly.
Definitely.
But other than that, the first, like everybody, that first month or two, we were kind of sneaking in the gym and we got in every single day. We got our same sessions in, but we had to cram, like double sessions at night instead of morning, afternoon, night, that kind of thing. So that was a little annoying getting ready for the first one. And even though I knew I did all the work, all my vitals, I'm big on stats. I like to check my whoop strap and all that. And everything was the same as when I always fight. My weight was good. Still, maybe wouldn't have been as fun going out there knowing everything was out of whack. So it gave me that extra 10, 12 weeks after the canceled fight to get back to full swing because here in North Carolina, pro athletes were allowed to train then and we didn't have to sneak or anything. So that was great. But it was a long, long training camp. I had about 22 weeks. So originally I was told May or June or April or May, I can't remember. And then when COVID hit, I was told May or June. So I started getting ready in March. And then, it ended up being about 12 weeks from when I was initially told was when I got the Hubbard fight. So prepared for that, started to bring my weight down a little bit, got sick, didn't really think anything was wrong. I was having some bad sparring sessions. I still felt very sharp, but as soon as they would end, I would go home and die for like 12 hours. It was like 3 days like that with like wrestling and hard practices. But I was like, oh, I'm just run down. I've been in camp for a long time, the uncertainty. I got a test just because I wanted to not go out there and ruin everybody's party by bringing COVID to, the apex. And sure enough, it came back positive. So I had to pull out. And then I got, I had a couple teammates that also had that issue. And then we just kind of quarantined together and trained. We weren't able to grapple because we didn't have masks, but we trained in a garage on like a flooring. And we're doing all our striking, all our conditioning. It was like a nice deload week, but we still trained every single day, twice a day. And, by all in all, when I got in there Saturday night, I had a 22-week training camp. So just had to monitor everything and listen to my coaches about not overtraining. And honestly, it was the best I felt. So that's props to them. Hudson Rose, especially, who was really, really big in my strength and conditioning. And Jeff Jimmo, who's really, really fantastic with our taper, among other things. He's our head MMA coach. He's fantastic at everything. But he's really, really a master at pulling you back and knowing when to. It's amazing.
Awesome. You just mentioned a little bit ago that this was a 22-week camp. Obviously, that's an incredibly long camp. So talk to us a little bit about the experience of being in such a long camp and how did you like the aspect of training for the same opponent for such a long time?
Yeah, it was interesting because I was training for really a nameless, faceless opponent. And the stress of that was like, oh, when are we going to fight? If I would have had a date, it wouldn't have been stressful at all. We didn't know who, but it was kind of nice. It just allowed me to focus on getting better. I'm only 26 years old. I'll be 27 soon. And I'm not near my prime yet. I'm just probably at the very, very beginning of it, if not even close. So I think they say 29 to 33, 34 can be your prime a lot of times. So for me, I just got to worry about getting better. So it was kind of nice, Then we got Hubbard about 2 to 3 weeks out in June. Short time to prepare for him, but I had to pull out. But then I kind of knew that was the level in the rankings of where they were thinking, someone just above me, which is kind of nice.
Yep.
I got offered a few other guys, and Yancy Medeiros was one, but he wasn't prepared yet just because of how they had to quarantine out there or whatever it was. So some names came and went, and then it circled back to Hubbard about 2.5 weeks out again. So he was always in the back of my mind just because I thought he might be ready again. And he's a game dude, so he took it, man. He's a tough guy and just an absolute warrior. So he took the fight, and yeah, we got to run it back. It was great. It was a long time of uncertainty. I was starting to get fed up at certain points, and but my strength and conditioning coach said it best: is our vision was bigger than the circumstances. The vision was to get back in a UFC cage and win a fight, put food on the table, and climb the rankings. And that's exactly what we did, no matter what the circumstances were. But I couldn't have done it without them, my wife, my teammates, everybody just being there for me. It was a really tough time just because you don't know when you're going to fight again. So I never had to pull out of a fight like that. It was very frustrating, but they kept me going, man. It was a fantastic camp, and I wouldn't change a thing. I learned a lot about fighting and myself this time.
Awesome. What made you want to become a fighter?
Just a couple things. I think number one is I'm from right outside Philadelphia, so Rocky. That was the biggest thing. I saw Rocky when I was 6 years old. I was like, I want to be like that guy. But I guess everybody that saw Rocky did. I started doing jiu-jitsu when I was 6 by accident, and first time I saw the UFC, that was it for me. I just knew that's what I wanted to do with my life. I was 10, and but the biggest thing that I always say is a quote that I heard a long time. I don't even know where it was from or who said it. Is rejection breeds obsession. And I was terrible at Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I started competing when I was 6, and from 6 to 16. My brother, he trained before me. He started a little before me, and he can confirm this. So can my old coach. I won no tournaments, no gold medals, no nothing from 6 to 16. Like awful. Would go get submitted from inside my own guard, 14-second losses, like just absolutely the worst. And I think that instilled in me a sense of I just kept getting rejected by the sport, and it made me want to be obsessive about it. And I think that's really, really what drove me ultimately was the challenge of getting good at something that I had no business being good at because I was not naturally gifted at all.
Awesome. So we know that in addition to fighting, you're married and you have a baby on the way. So just talk to us a little bit about the balance between preparing for both fatherhood and a UFC fight at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest thing for us is, fighting is life in our house. And it has been since me and my wife first started dating is, I wasn't even fighting when we met. On our second date, I kind of we were talking at dinner and I said, look, what's your vices? And she didn't really, of course she wasn't honest about them, whatever they were. But, and then she kind of fired back the same thing. And I was like, I said, I don't drink. I don't do anything. I really haven't dated very much at all. I've just kind of been in a room training since I was 6 years old, really, and, but I said, I want to do mixed martial arts. I'm a competitor in jiu-jitsu right now. I'm transitioning to mixed martial arts and I want to fight. And I said, I'm not going to have a lot of time. I'm probably not going to have any money. This could work out really good or it might not. And the only promise I made was if it starts to hinder us and we want to have a family or, we can't pay our bills, I will do the right thing and get a job. And, I was still working, but I would get like a full-time, be done and just train for fun. And she's like, I'm in. And a couple weeks later, I took a fight, and we figured out how to do this together. This was my 17th fight, including amateurs. I had 5 amateurs, and we've really learned how to do this together. So nothing really changed much. The excitement of having a baby was great. I had to maybe pick fight dates around the due date and be like, hey, I'm not going to fight in September. But other than that, nothing. She's been so fantastic through it all. And she's really, really, really tough. And she's been at work the entire time. She's an absolute rock star. But the big thing for us is we know that this is a job. Just because we're self-employed doesn't mean you're unemployed. So I can't get up and go, I got a baby on the way. I can't go to training. Unfortunately, that'd be nice, but not the way it is. If I had a job in real life, I'd have to show up. That's the one thing I'm very thankful, and I haven't been vocal about enough in my life is my father is an absolute just workhorse. I've seen him. He got double knee surgery, and he crushed his way into work that day because he had to be there. I've seen him throw his back out doing work around the house and then have to go to work the next day, or 4 a.m. had to go into work because the computers were down or whatever it was, and had all these employees under him just always doing the right thing. When he was the boss, he was one of the higher ups at his job. He could have easily been like, nah, somebody else do it. And he just didn't do that. Same thing for me. If I got to do my airlines, I'm going to do them. There's no question of, is Joe going to show up today? I was back at strength and conditioning today, and wrestling practice and everything else because it's the right thing to do. So that's kind of the approach me and my wife have is it's work. And if I got to miss some stuff to be there, it's because I'm doing this for them, so I'm only going to do this, till maybe if I'm 40, if I'm super blessed and healthy. So, by then, my daughter will still be very young, and she'll have a great life, hopefully.
Wonderful. So what kind of impact has John Salter and Jeff Jimmo and the rest of your coaching staff had on you and the overall development of you as a fighter?
Oh, man, a huge, huge impact. First and foremost, just in the order of how I obtain these coaches is Chris Goud is my boxing coach. And it's so funny. He's like the quietest guy in the world. I'm very quiet when I'm not on the, at a fight. That's my natural habitat. Everywhere else I'm very introverted. And we almost wouldn't talk to each other because he's a quiet guy. He looks unapproachable. I can be unapproachable sometimes. And we ended up linking up right before my last amateur fight. And, there was so many times where I couldn't afford to pay for a session, and he's not an expensive boxing coach. So he just kind of would always be like, man, like you got a future in this. Just pay me when you can. Pay me when you can. Pay me when you can. Came to fights. I could barely get in my hotel room. Like just amazing, amazing human being. Believed in me. Man, I got knocked out in one of my regional fights, and he's like, all right, I'll see you Monday. Who cares? Like, man, I let you down. No, you didn't. Who cares? Bigger picture, man. It's all going to be good. Like always saw the bigger picture, and now we're here together, you know? And it's just so funny. He wants nothing from me, you know? Obviously, I just try to look like a jerk. I pay a percentage now, like a normal coach and student. But it's so funny. Like we were laughing when the fight got canceled in June. This is how he is. He doesn't want his picture taken. He doesn't want articles about him. He's like, man, I thought we could have won that fight, man. That was a very winnable fight for us. I could have got that NBA Jam mini arcade game from my house. It's like $200. And I was like, yeah, you could have done a lot more than that. Like he's just a all around great guy who just does not care about anything but me being healthy and safe and having a good time. So he's been fantastic. He's been with me my entire pro career. And then I met John Salter. You know, I saw John Salter at UFC 118 when he was about my age, and he was fighting Dan Miller. And I'm from New Jersey, so I was just cheering. I was like 17. I was just cheering for Dan Miller. I was not going to root for some guy from Alabama because I'm from the North who's a wrestler. Wrestlers always beat me in tournaments, so I didn't like wrestlers at the time who, you know, and let alone a Miller brother. They're from New Jersey, like the pride of New Jersey. So I was just like, I can't stand this guy. And then 8 years later, he's doing a seminar at the gym I was training at in Myrtle Beach. Came down, was the most intelligent, humble, just nicest guy you could possibly meet, and taught a fantastic seminar. And I had to know where he was. He was only an hour away from where we lived. Mm-hmm. So I went down and trained. And from that day on, started planning on how me and my wife could move there to train with him, because it's important in this game to have somebody you can look up to be like, but also in life. You know, he's, I think 7 or 8 years older than me. And I have a fantastic big brother up in New Jersey, but in the fight game, I didn't have that role model of like, yeah, you have your coaches, but I needed somebody to follow who's doing it and who's successful. And he's like my MMA big brother, you know, and him and his wife have become two of our absolute best friends in the world. They're just great human beings. And it's amazing how like freak luck like that. Like how did he end up in North Carolina? I ended up in South Carolina when he was in California at the time training, and I was in New Jersey. It doesn't even make sense. So very, very fortunate. And then there's Jeff Jimmo, you know, same thing. It's all like this weird luck. Like we were at fights in South Carolina, and there was a lot of low level fights on the card. And there was myself. I was the co-main event. And Dylan Cowell, who's another stud at 145 out of Jim O. We were warming up, and we looked over and we're like, dang, those guys are good. They're hitting pads good. And we introduced ourselves, and we talked about, I said, oh, you're Jeff Jimmo. I've heard so much about you. Like, I'd love to get some training in sometime. And I was like, oh, anytime, man. And we shook hands, went our ways. We actually both suffered losses that night. And a couple days later, through his wife on social media, because again, he's not an attention guy. He's not on social media or anything. She reached out, gave me his phone number, said that he was interested in some cross training, and he knew I was. And then a hurricane hit, and we needed somewhere to go train. So we went to Charlotte, and it just so happened he was there. John went first. He got there first. He went to practice, and he got done. He goes, that's the best MMA practice I've ever been to in the 10, 12 years I've been training. I went the next day when John had to take off to go fight Lovato, and same thing. The man's a genius. And it's a 4-hour ride from our houses. We go every single week when we got fights coming up, and even when we don't. The atmosphere he's created there, the products that he's put out in the Holtzmans and the Barbarina, Impa Kasaganai is homegrown from there. And you're just seeing the level of fighter and human being that come out of there. It's just amazing. Truly incredible human being, truly incredible coach. Having him there this week was the reason I won. I truly believe that. I'm not just saying that to be humble or so that he'll like me more. I truly, truly believe that I won because of having him there. And it was amazing. And then the missing piece of the puzzle was Hudson Rose from Hudson Rose Athletics here in Wilmington. And I found him on Instagram. I was just creeping Instagram on the strength and conditioning. I always was jealous of these pro fighters that didn't have to do their own strength and conditioning. And I used to have a trainer in Myrtle Beach, Keith Hare, who was fantastic, but we moved away. I couldn't get to him, you know, and he moved on since and got a job doing strength and conditioning for the fire department. So we parted ways. We're still really, really close friends, but I didn't have anybody. I was doing my own, and me and John would do it together or whatever, do some circuits, but it wasn't the same. And we found Hudson on Instagram. I messaged him, same thing. I couldn't afford to go in there. And I kind of got nervous because I was still in the regional. I couldn't afford it, and I wouldn't go in. I was like, I can't pay this guy. What am I doing? And I wish I would have, because knowing what I know now, we would have figured out a way. You know, he's such a good guy. But we ended up going later, John and myself, and man, he has been so dedicated to us. It's been just over a year now, and I feel like a true professional athlete now, thanks to him. My confidence is going through the roof, and he's so dedicated. He trained me on Thanksgiving Day. He's letting me in the gym during hurricane, whenever we need to go in, he's been there for me because he sees the vision and he's just been fantastic. And the last missing piece of the puzzle, I know it's long-winded, is my lifelong coach, John Hassett. I talk about him all the time, but I put it in a post the other day, is he changed the trajectory of my life. I was truly believe I was born to be average, especially in athletics, and just blend in. I was a quiet guy. I've always been introverted, and he put this obsession in my head. He taught me the techniques that I still use to this day. And he put the black belt around my waist. And I feel like when he put that around my waist, he also put this obligation to try and be the best man I could be, because he's held such a high standard. So, man, I'm just a culmination of those guys. They run these great schools, great programs. And the people that go in these places, not just the coaches, are just as fantastic. So I'm just a culmination of all those people.
That's so well said, man. Thank you so much. That was a great answer. So just for our last question today, you're on a 5-fight win streak. The last 3 wins have been in the UFC. Is there any idea of when you want to get back in the cage?
Yeah, I think December will be perfect. I'm not taking any time off. I was back training yesterday. I didn't plan to be. I wanted to take a week off. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I can't. I was teaching a class and I have to roll. I love it. I'm healthy, so I got back at it. But I think just being out of camp and working on some strength and conditioning stuff to build my body back up before I get into camp in a couple weeks. Other than that, I'm sparring. I'm doing everything else like I normally do. Wrestling's the same. My schedule's the same. So if it comes sooner, fantastic. But I think December would be a perfect timeline.
And any names that you have in mind or anything?
Nothing specific, because it's crazy. I've gotten people saying things from somebody. I think I'm like in the top. I'm in like the 60s, I think, on Tapology, which is, a rough estimate. I've gotten guys that are listed below me, above me. I've had people talking, like John Anik on his podcast, talking about how I could be fighting a top 15 guy soon. That's insane. But I'm down for whatever, man. The UFC is going to offer it. My job is to say yes and train my butt off and take the opportunities in stride. Every time I've done that, it seems to have worked out. With the main card slot the other day was an accident. Every time something's accidental, it seems to work out. So I'm just going to take whatever they tell me. My management knows best. My coaches know best. And I'm just here to do the work.
Great, man. Thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, really enjoyed it, man. Thanks for having me on. Take care.
You too.